Valley Water District to order. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. So Lisa, can we have the roll call, please?
Director Holcomb?
Here.
Director Johnson is absent. Director Roberts?
Here.
Director Balch?
Here.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
4 present.
Is Shirley going to come, or?
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I talked to her. I mean, it sounds like she's going to be here, so.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Number 3, public forum. Any person may address the board of directors on any matter of business jurisdiction which is not on the agenda. No one here. No one on Zoom, Lisa?
There is someone on Zoom, but they haven't requested any speaker options.
Then we go on to the number 4, the consent agenda. We got 4 items, 4A, B, C, and D. If we can approve them all at the same time.
I'll move for approval of the consent agenda.
Polly seconds.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? The roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson is absent. Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
4-1, motion passes.
Then we go on to unfinished business. There's none. That's item 5. Then item number 6, it's a closed session conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. District negotiator Jeff Denken, employee organization SEIU, local 620. So we're going to go in closed session now. So.
Recording stopped.
Okay, so there's no reportable action on the conference with the labor negotiator. And now we adjourn to the regular meeting of the Carpinteria Groundwater Sustainability Agency. I call the meeting to order. Item number 2, public forum. Any person may address the board of directors on any matter within his jurisdiction, which is not on the agenda. You guys want to talk tonight or not? You better speak up. So. Or just tell us what items you want to.
Yeah, this is for the public forum.
Okay.
Because it's slightly off agenda. So Scott Vanderkar, thank you very much. Glad to be here. I was encouraged by the minutes showing how many people attended last meeting. It was very encouraging, but now it looks like we're back to the normal, and I apologize. I'm here to bend your ear again. I think you have the handout in front of you. I asked that it be distributed, and I just want to refer to that. Because I assume that there'll be another survey going out, and this is all old news, and I'm afraid it doesn't have a date on it, but I believe that this went out last fall. Am I close on that, Bob? Yeah, last fall. I just wanted to point out, because I went over this, this particular one is one of the family members that that family member runs the property, but it happens to be identical to the property next door that I run, same soil, same everything. And so I was really curious because this one gets 100% of its water through the meter. There is no groundwater used here. And that's what really caught my eye. And so looking at this page with the calculations here, I wanted to point out just irregularities that are confusing for me. So the 11.56 acre feet at the bottom, and I might point out that the date should read July 1st through June 30th, let's see, yeah, 30th. And I would say that the first question that should have been asked on the cover page was to the grower is, do you use groundwater? Because if the answer is no, then the rest is sort of moot as far as groundwater, estimated groundwater use. But I wanted to bring to your attention the 2.63 acre feet per acre on the avocados, and I don't know where these numbers come from. They didn't come from me, and they didn't come from UC Extension. And as you can see from this is 2.32 acre feet per acre for a mix of avocados and cherimoyas. And with that in line, if you will drop down to the cherimoyas, which showed 3.56, which I and all the growers I know say that avocados and cherimoyas use nearly identical amounts of water. But if you see that 3.56 and you go up to the second item up above that says avocados and cherimoyas, and it's still at 2.63. So this is the information that's going out to the growers that, you know, it's nonsensical. Not only is it inaccurate based on everything I know, but it's also just the numbers themselves and the way they're lined up. Lemons, everybody I know who grows lemons says they use half as much water as avocados, but you look at this and it doesn't show that way. So those are the things that I wanted to bring to your attention, hoping that the next time around things are done better. Now, this is water under the bridge. I realize that the billing is not going to be done this way in the future. But as I understand it, the crop acreage and the crop water uses are going to be used unless they're corrected. And that would be my hope going forward. And I think, yeah, if there are any questions now or later, I sure would like to help make this more accurate. And the other part of this that is important, if I understand things correctly, is these assumptions and these estimates are determining how the GSA bill is split between private pumpers and the water district groundwater pumping. And if those estimates are 30% off in favor of the groundwater pumpers, then that whole billing scheme needs to be changed as we go forward, even when it's done on a volume extracted basis. And I will say that we have 2 brand-new water meters. We're going to be installing them next week on the 2 wells, and I hope they qualify for what you're requiring. I sent some information to you on the one. The second one, we went down to Coastal Pipco in Ventura, Oxnard, said, what kind of meters are people putting on their wells? They came up with 2. One was a digital electronic with a battery backup. The other one was a mechanical. I opted for the mechanical because if the battery goes down, you miss some calculations on water use. So I will be contacting you, Bob, to just make sure we're in line on those. And I look forward to getting these numbers more accurate, as accurate as possible. Thank you.
Okay, Scott, I got a question for you. You chose to go with a mechanical meter.
Yeah.
And does that want to have a transmitter on it or not?
Does it have a what?
A transmitter on it? I mean, would it be capable of transmitting the
Oh,
information?
no. Yeah, I didn't have that.
Okay, the only reason I bring it up is so once everybody starts installing meters, I believe that, and Bob, tell me if I'm wrong, then the district will go out once a year to verify that everything is
Right.
the way it's supposed to. And obviously, the way we have the eye on water has been very efficient for the district, but it also cuts our labor down substantially
Yeah.
to have transmitters.
Well, I think later in the meeting, we'll be hearing some reporting on the metering that Bob's done some research on. I would suspect that adds quite a cost to the meter. This 1.5-inch meter was $700. We're going to install it ourselves. We can, take the photograph. It has the date on it. It'll show the meter reading at 0 and the date that we're putting it in, and we'll go forward with that. And we'll report that. I know that some of the districts in Ventura County, that's what they require. We're kind of hands-on and frugal. So that would be the drawback on getting a transmitting one. I don't know how much more they cost.
Right, but so Ventura is right now, they require a meeting, most likely, most of the guys are using mechanical meters in Ventura then?
When we asked at Coastal Pipco, they showed these 2 meters and said these 2 are the 2 that are most popular.
Got it.
So I don't know 50-50 or what on that.
Right, but in Ventura, every grower, every pumper needs to have his meter checked once a year, like you do your backflow provide. Now you're also going to check your calibration. So, but that's
Right.
Yeah, but besides calibration, there also needs to be a double check that nothing else is funny business is happening. So
Yeah. Well, and as you said, just like the RPs, an annual inspection would make sense and make sure it's operating properly and recording properly. And if it's not, that'll be caught at that time. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to item number 3, approval items. 3A, minutes of the special meeting of the board held on June 4th, 2024.
Move for approval.
Holly seconds.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Then roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item number 3B, disbursement report for May 11, 2024 through July 10, 2024. Need a motion, please?
I move to approve.
Holly seconds.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we got item number 3C, annual vendor report for the year 23-24. Motion, please.
Holly motions for approval.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? A roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we go to item number 4, unfinished business, none. Item number 5, new business. 5A, consider Bartlett, Pringle, and Wolf audit arrangement letter for the fiscal year 23-24 in the amount not to exceed $10,000 for action. Bob?
Yeah, this is we've done it in the past few years, an engagement letter with a fee. And so if you have any questions, Norma is very familiar with this and she can answer them.
Is this the same amount as last year?
Last year, you can see on the vendor payment history, it was 8,400. So it's gone up a little bit. I think it's been a little more, it's getting more complicated now that we're doing the direct charges and we have additional testing requirements at sampling that they have to do. So it's more involved than it's been.
How many years has BPW done it?
This would fiscal year 24 would be their 4th year.
Is that typical?
Yes, I did a presentation last year, and what we found in the research that we did is typically it is more years, and after 5 years, they recommend doing a partner rotation if we decide to stay with them.
I support it. I'm happy to make a motion.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Then a roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
And Director Balch?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, Scott, question. You got put down 5A, but I'm assuming you want to speak on 5B, right?
Oh, actually, 5A.
Well, speak up.
Scott Vanderkar. And this just goes back to budget discussions previously, where it has just confounded me that, from what I can tell, budgets are adopted here after the money is spent. And my experience, I just want to share that in the business world and with the businesses I deal with and organizations I deal with, we adopt a budget at the beginning of the year, which this is an anticipated cost that I would think would be included in a budget that would be approved at the beginning of the year, and there would be no need for a special motion as you have it here. It just confounds me, and seems a very strange way to do business by having very little oversight over the costs before they're expended. Thank you.
Would you like me to respond to that?
Yes, please.
Through the chair. So we adopt budgets at the beginning or prior to the beginning of the fiscal year, which in our case starts in July 1st. And the budget has two functions. It helps us plan for future for the fiscal year costs, and it helps us collect the revenue needed to support those costs. We call the budget an appropriation, so that budget document is appropriating money for the fiscal year to come. Within the budget, we have broad categories, and in particular, in this year's budget, we had a item called, I believe it was administrative professional services, that covers this cost. Anytime we enter into an agreement with a vendor, particularly a professional services agreement, which this would be, we need authorization to enter into that agreement or that contract. And so that's what we're doing here, is we're gaining authorization to enter into this agreement.
Good explanation, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Then we got item number 5B, consider status of the GSA well registration and meter program development for information, Bob.
Yeah, so I think it's timely that I'm making this presentation because, before I could get here, Scott bought a meter, and so we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we found in the work that we're doing. This is kind of an overview of the project or the program milestones if we were to have a program. At this point, what we've determined is there's interest, and so we are evaluating the program. If we were to if we were to go all the way through implementation of a program, we would first start by reviewing existing metering programs out there, which we've done. And we would, if we decided to go forward with the program, we'd start stakeholder outreach, which is important because we have had various folks, say that, yes, metering is the way we should go. We should use actual numbers and not an estimated pumping number as a basis for fees. And so we want to get the message out there that this is our understanding. Let anyone else come and make comments and make sure that we understand the issues. Once we're through that, we would start developing a program framework. There are three major pieces to these programs. The first is funding. How do you fund something like this? Is it self-funded, meaning, owner-funded, meaning that the owners would be mandated or required to put a meter in and that they would pay? Or would it be funded by the agency? In other words, the agency would need to collect funding from those same owners and pay for a program of implementing the program. Then there's reporting. So reporting is something that some of the agencies that we surveyed had real problems with. In other words, getting the actual meter reads and making sure that the meter reads were correct was an issue. And so we want to be sure that we design a framework that makes sure we minimize the problems that can occur during reporting. And then the final item was whether the program is mandatory or voluntary. And we did, when we surveyed the agencies that we surveyed, there was one agency that had a voluntary program, but all the rest were mandatory. Once we get through kind of the development of the program, we would need to do a CEQA evaluation. It's likely that it would be an exempt project, but we still have to do it. And then once we get through that process, we develop the authorizing documents for board consideration and board adoption of the policy, which would probably happen right around the same time period. And then finally implement the policy. And depending on what the policy is, if it's mandatory, for example, if it's a mandatory program and it's being done by the owners of the well, that's going to take a certain amount of time. If it's being done by the agency, the GSA, that's probably going to take a different amount of time. If it's a voluntary program, it may never be fully implemented because you're waiting for people to make a decision. So in the agency review, we reviewed 17 agents or surveyed 17 agencies. 8 were GSAs, 2 were groundwater management agencies, which are under a different section of the law that exist because there's been chronic problems in the basin and then 7 adjudicated basins, meaning those basins were settled in a court of law. The management was settled in a court of law. As I said a minute ago, questions asked included the 3 area policy areas of funding, reporting, and whether it's a mandatory or volunteer program. Just quickly, just to give you kind of a quick look at the agencies we talked to. Montecito, which is our neighbor, San Ynez River, which actually has 3 sub-basins that are separate GSAs, but we just talked to the single executive director. Cuyama, Upper Ventura River Basin, San Antonio Basin, and Pajaro Basin. Those are all GSAs. Pretty much all of those are in the process of putting together a program. None have implemented fully. Then we talked to Ojai GMA and Fox Canyon GMA. Fox Canyon's in Ventura. Ojai is in Ojai. Both have had a metering program for a long time, both mandatory. Fox Canyon is a little bit more sophisticated and has developed a lot of measures to make sure that the reporting works. They didn't seem to be having issues with reporting. Ojai, on the other hand, has had serious problems with reporting, anywhere from people just not reporting, people, lying about what the amount of water that they're using. They're supposed to submit a photograph of the meter, but many don't. They just fill in the form. And then there's no meter accuracy testing, and so they're having a hard time actually getting the data. And then
I interrupt you. How long has Ojai had a mandatory program for?
Probably at least 10 years, more probably. And then adjudicated basins, again, the solution, or the prescriptive solution that the court puts out makes it mandatory, and there typically is a water master or some sort of guardian of the program that makes sure that everything is being reported correctly. So most of these don't have problems with reporting. So some of the takeaways from the survey.
Can I ask one question before
Sure.
you go on? And it's a great idea to ask around in our neighborhood. I think it's just a common sense thing. I'm glad you're doing that. What about Goleta? Are they
It's
in
an
the,
adjudicated basin, yes.
oh, okay. Are they one of the ones you
Um,
surveyed? Or?
no,
I
actually.
didn't know they, I
yeah,
guess I didn't know they were adjudicated.
they weren't responsive. So.
Okay, thank you.
So some of the takeaways from the survey, pretty much all agencies were either in the process or had a metering program. So I think it's fairly it's a good idea to move in that direction because it's fairly common. The 2 drivers that were out there for metering were first, mostly actually data collection for sustainability management. So most of the metering is focused around making sure that that the agency that's tasked with managing the groundwater basin has the data that they need to actually manage it. And then fee collection for I don't want to say half of the agencies, but for a number of the agencies was a reason that they had metering. So in our situation, I think both would be drivers, but we're kind of going at it with the fee collection issue primarily, but certainly the data quality of the data that we'll get from these meters will be helpful in terms of management. How how program was and is being implemented range from meters completely installed and monitored by the agency to owner installed and managed meters. So it kind of was across the board in terms of, how these programs were implemented. Different setups come with different problems. For example, Montecito, our neighbor, is doing a voluntary program where they pay for and install the meters and read the meters. But the problem is no one's interested. And so that's kind of that's kind of an issue. Their fee is based on parcel acreage. They haven't gone to a pumping fee, so there's no fee driver for a meter. And so it really isn't compelling for an owner to give up that information if they don't have to. Funding, again, ranges from owner-funded to agency-funded. Like I said, Montecito collected money for the program. I think they have a budget of about $250,000. But again, they're struggling in terms of participation, and so that money is waiting to be used. As I said, reporting ranged from self-reporting to photos to actual staff going out and reading, all the way to AMI systems that report the use. Program challenges identified included collection of fees. OHI is one agency that's having very much a difficult time collecting fees. Agency access to meters. Similarly, OHI is having problems getting access to the meters to inspect them. Meter accuracy. Fox Canyon has figured this out. They have a requirement that the meters need to be checked annually. If they get, I think, outside of 5% of accuracy, the meter is no longer suitable for measuring water. Tampering, as you know, there's been some news about the Fox Canyon program where someone was tampering with how the water was moving through the meter. And timely implementation, again, as all of the GSAs are in the process of implementing this, and it can take some time. It can't happen very quickly. So with all that said and kind of the review behind us, we're taking a stab at a projected schedule, and you can see the dates kind of month and year here in the circles in kind of each one of those milestones. If we project this out, and we're giving ourselves almost a year to do implementation, just because we don't know what implementation would look like until we've developed the framework of the program. But we're out here somewhere in December of 2025 before we would see a fully implemented program. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions or hear any comments.
Do you have any comments, Scott?
I do.
Well, why don't you come first, and then we'll have ours.
I have an idea that I want to share before I forget it. Our two wells are monitored by the district. We have a district representative come out and do a water test and whatever else they want to do to the two wells. If that could be combined, especially all of those who do participate in that program, if those could be the ones who take this meter concept forward, if there can be something that would encourage them to get meters on those. But in our case, it would be the perfect solution to your concern case, that when, that's twice a year, I believe,
The sampling, yes.
that representative comes out, they can take a meter reading right then and let us know if there's any reason to believe that things aren't working right, and then the annual test or whatever the time frame should be for that certification. But just having that extra set of eyes that comes out, looks at it, can take a picture or just write down what it says, that wouldn't take any extra manpower and might be a great way to get a pilot program going. Thank you.
Thanks.
And perhaps encourage more growers to participate in the program so that we have a better idea of what's going on in the basin.
Right, Scott, because, you're very diligent as far as, obviously, you want to prove these numbers wrong, which obviously, I like to see that too, but, we have metered properties that are showing different what you think should be happening, so that's fine. And it'd be really interesting, once we get those meters on those wells and make sure they're accurate, then we'll have the real data. Any, Polly?
So until then, Scott got a meter. He got what he thinks is a good meter. He asked around for the best meter, and it was $700, which seems like a fair price to me. It doesn't have transmission ability on it, but, so my question is, if we want to have a different meter, do we tell people not to buy meters yet until we know which kind, or do we tell them to go with Scott's, which is you've done some background on it, and it's seems like a fair price too, if the growers are willing to.
Yeah, most meters are adaptable. You can get an encoder that fits over the top of a meter, and then it will transmit if that's what you're trying to do. Most meters are going to work fine.
They're gonna what?
They're going to work fine. There's probably a handful of very cheap meters that probably would not be acceptable in terms of its accuracy, but I think Water Specialties is the meter that you purchased, if I recall.
Got the name right here, it's a
Master meter, yeah. Yeah, so that's a major brand. I'm sure it would work fine.
Sure, we just want to make sure though that people, while it's going to take this long to get our program together, we just don't want people going out and getting the wrong meters either.
Right.
So, I'm just saying. And Scott
Yeah,
got
part of the
Scott got
state-
a good one, good reputable, that,
Yeah.
he might be the,
Part of the stakeholder outreach would be kind of talking to people to make sure that they're communicating with the GSA before they do make a purchase of a meter.
okay.
Yeah, I'm certainly willing to be the guinea pig on this,
Right.
and my feeling is, we're paying thousands of dollars now with our different properties on these GSA fees. So $700 all of a sudden doesn't seem like so much to find out, how accurate we
Exactly.
are. So,
That's my point. That's
Yeah,
my
even if we
point.
have to
And-
get
and-
in a-
And we were thinking about, was it the county that said they might do a $500 rebate, looking into that, so.
I need to check into that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
they do have, it's called the Water Agency Meter Assistance Program. WMAP, I think is the acronym.
Yeah.
So, you mind letting us know how it goes with the county collecting your $500 per meter?
Yeah,
No, I like to know.
And then if we have to get a transmitter or something to put on top of
I didn't know that's
Scott's
how
and
that-
something else, then we
good to
could do
know.
that, because I could see how the transmission might be.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, we don't want people going out, jumping the gun and getting the wrong kind of meter, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I appreciate the initiative.
Bob, I'm curious about the comment concerning collection. We're billed on our taxes, and I don't have any opportunity not to pay my taxes.
You want me to tell you how people are not paying their fees in Ojai? Ojai does direct billing. They don't use the tax roll. And so that's one of the sources of their problems is people ignore the
Okay, well,
bill.
we don't do that, so
No,
why
we
worry
don't.
about it?
Well, there are other issues that could affect, fee collection. And we have heard the suggestion that we not use the tax roll, so.
So, Will, what you're telling us, you really prefer us using the tax rolls because it's very efficient and everybody pays their fair share? Thank you.
So I think just to add to Polly's point is I think we need to have either we need an answer as to whether don't buy a meter right now or buy one of these 20 meters or wait a month or wait a year or whatever it is.
We can prioritize that.
Yeah, and then,
Develop a list.
yeah, that's good.
Shirley?
Oh, yeah, I was very surprised to hear you say that, mechanical meters can be easily converted to smart meters. Is it a smart meter?
It's
or
not
just
the
for-
meter, most meters have two options. You can have a dial that you can physically read, or you can have an electronic head, which is digital. And most dial-style meters can be converted to have what's called an encoder in it. It's just an extra part you put inside, and it has two wires that come out, and then you hook the transmitter to that, and that's what transmits the signal back to your AMI system. So all of our meters, for example, in the ground that we use for water meters, are just regular meters with two wires coming out, and then we have a transmitter that we hook to it, and it collects all the data and sends it to the central cloud server.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because everything is smart, this, that, the other thing. And so I thought, well, we don't want to start with mechanical if we're going to ask people to, everyone's going for smart. So you're saying they are convertible. So that's interesting. So, and my second question was, yeah, I just wanted to point out the $700 or $750 that you bought your meter for. Just to let you know, I have just been forced by the homeowners insurance, farmers, that I must put an automatic shutoff device on my little house, 4 units a month water I use, and that's $860 plus extra, about $1,000 extra to install it and stuff. So, so anyway, that just came to mind. Yeah, I agree. We sure don't want people buying the wrong kind of meter and then, then having to redo it. And,
Scott, I'm sure you checked the price on the electronic meter from Coastal Pipco?
Yeah, and it wasn't that much more expensive. Now, it wasn't a transmitting one. What bothered me about it was that it's an electronic measuring device, and so it seemed that if the battery went dead or the power failed, it might stop recording the usage. So the transmitting part was not a question I asked. I don't know the details, but the mechanical versus the electronic, the difference was $100.
Interesting.
But that was 1.5 inches. To go to 2 inch was a big jump to like 1,300, something like that.
Okay, Bob, so our Badger meters that we're using, so they're not mechanical. We have electronic measuring and we have electronic transmitting.
Yeah, so the Badger meters from 3/4 inch to 1.5 inch are what we call ultrasonic. So they use sound Doppler as a method to measure the velocity and then calculate the flow. Above that, we use Census. I believe they're called Omnis, and they're just regular what we call positive displacement meters, and they have an output that we can hook our endpoints to, and that's how we collect the data.
Okay, also,
They're typically, consumption meters are a little bit different than well meters. Well meters are usually what we call a tube style meter, and consumption meters are a little bit different. They're meant to just, totalize the water and not really be concerned with the flow rate.
right. And you and me had a discussion a couple of months ago. What was the cost of the difference between let's say an electronic meter and then adding the transmitter to it? It was like a couple $100 more?
Yeah, the endpoints are around $250.
Okay, so I have a question for the rest of the board. Are we interested in, even though it's a lot of money, for the district to pay for the $250? So first of all, we don't have to go out there and check anything because we can do it in the same system we're using with iron water, right? It is,
Yeah.
so that would be, on the long haul, it would be a huge time saving for us to have to do that. Is that something,
I'd entertain it.
Matt?
We can get some analysis on it. This would be a GSA thing, right?
Yeah, it would be a GSA thing, and we'll start looking at meter models and look at what it would take.
Yeah, I think we should definitely look into it. Makes sense.
Stacy?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's got to be a happy place that we can find something that works for everybody. Do you know about what the Badger, like the 1.5-inch Badger, cost us? Like, any idea?
The consumption meter?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
a lot, yeah.
More than
Those are
700
very
bucks?
expensive meters, yes.
A lot.
Thousands of dollars.
Oh, really? So you, more than a
Inch and a
thousand?
half meter, yes, they're very expensive. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I-
go ahead.
And I guess I do wonder, like, if, you know, down the road in this program, there's got to be, I would imagine, some economy of scale where, you know, we could buy 200 meters, whatever it is, at some volume discount through a supplier. But I know they're kind of different paths than we typically order through, but it might be an interesting way to also be able to support saving costs on these meters on
Yeah,
top
one of the things that we have to do, you know, I don't know, you're saying your meter is 1.5 inches, is that right? Yes. You know, we have to evaluate the flow rates because 1.5 inches won't work for everyone. If you have an 800 gallon per minute well, you're going to need a 6-inch meter. You know, if you have a 50 gallon per minute, you know, they're different. Everything's different about it. The pipe size going into the meters has to be evaluated. The length of you know, the amount of room you have to put the meter in. So it would be difficult to just buy a batch of meters and say we have these meters for anyone who wants to use them because we don't really know. So I think some work has to be done in terms of surveying the actual wellheads. We have about 300 wells that we know of that would need to be examined.
Yeah, just to add to what Bob was saying, it's my bad, but I put a 2-inch meter on a 3-inch line, and I didn't check the volume of water going through, and I blew up the meter within a year. So Scott, keep an eye on that. So it is,
But
This
I'll-
is going on, yeah, this is going on a 50 gallon a minute well, so it should go through 1.5 inches, no problem.
But I'm just all the more reason to make sure that we communicate to the pumpers that we don't want them buying the wrong.
Yeah, this is an argument for agency and implemented program where we go out and install a proper meter and sizing and that sort of thing.
Okay.
what's interesting is Coastal Pipco has a good reputation. The fact that they carry those two brands does say something because those farmers in Ventura are not very tolerant if things don't work. So it is. So that's something to keep an eye on. So it is. All right. Any more discussion, guys? Then we'll move on to item number 6, Executive Director Report for information, the financials. So it's going to be Bob and Norma.
This will be Norma.
Yeah, they're included in your packet there. So through May, at 92% through the year, the assessment revenue is about $421,000. There's still a little bit trickling in some late payments in the month of June, and expenses are about $195,000. And these are unaudited statements, so in June, we do some annual accrual, so you'll see this jump up a little bit for the June, once we finish and post off June.
Any questions? Okay. Then we're adjourned on the agencies. And then we move back to the regular meeting of the Carpinteria Valley Water District. Number 8, new business. 8A, consider Bartlett Pringle Wolf audit arrangement letter for the fiscal year 23-24 in the amount not to exceed $37,000 for action. Bob?
Yeah, so this is, again, an engagement letter that we have budgeted, and we just need authorization to engage BPW for this year's audit.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I would just ask what year we're on with them for this one.
The same, fourth year.
Fourth.
Yeah, and just one other comment, Director Johnson, you had asked about the price of the $37,000 is less than what they've quoted last year. So they quoted at 38,000, so it's coming in at 37,000. And I think actually last year, the actual cost was about 36,000, so that's a little bit under budget.
Nice to see something
Not much,
go
but a little.
down. And also, this is 5-year, but before that, I think we were with Bartlett.
Before Bartlett, we were with Brown Armstrong for
Yeah,
3
yeah, but
years,
we
and
were-
then we were with Bartlett before that.
15 years, so we have a long relationship with them. So it's good to see something go down.
Okay, then we roll call, please. Sorry, yeah, roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
I,
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
And Director Van Weerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we got item number 8B, consider update on the Carpinteria Valley Water District strategic planning. For information, Bob.
Yeah, so I'm thinking you're all aware that we've been working on a strategic plan for the district, and Meso's been heading up that effort, and so she's just going to talk a little bit about the status, kind of give you a quick presentation.
Hello, everyone. So there's just the one slide, just to sort of summarize the overall process so we can see where we are. So to recap what we've done so far, we created an initial outline of the document itself and a plan for how to develop the content of the document so that we had an idea of how to actually complete it. The first step then was actually to conduct interviews, so talking to all of you, the board members, talking to the managers, and then we also collected anonymous feedback from the staff as well. So a comprehensive effort to get input from everyone on what their concerns and priorities were for the district. Then I took that feedback and summarized it into different themes and categories. There was definitely some themes that arose, some consistencies between responses. And so I took that summary information and then I sent some of that back to all of you to see, if I captured your responses correctly. I've also shared some of that internally. And then the next step is really to figure out how to take that collection of information and actually get it into an actionable plan, because the volume of information we collected and sort of the wish list status is not necessarily the same thing as, specific items we can act on as the district. So the first step in that was to do dot voting. So I put the information out in the summarized fashion to all of the staff and asked them what their priorities were. I then am going to engage the managers through a prioritization exercise. And I've also distributed a survey to all of you to get your priorities on these items as well. So the idea is then that we will have a subset from the original list, which we feel are the most important items to address, and we also have an indication of the resources that would be necessary to address those items, so we can make an informed decision about what we want in the final plan as our items to address in the near term. So the purpose of this plan is addressing items for the next 5 years, but we still have this sort of body of information covered, which we can refer back to for future updates, and also so that we can see how we got from the original data collection to what's actually prioritized. So everyone can see, their input was considered, and then this is how we got from that initial input to what we're actually acting on. So we're in that select priorities step right now, and then once we get that final list, I will then put that into a document format. But it will take a couple of steps and a couple of meetings to actually go through that prioritization. That's really all I have on the update at this point.
can I ask a question? Would this be similar to the Carpinteria City General Plan formulation, which we've never really done, but we're not a city, but isn't it kind of like a
No, this is a high-level
master plan?
kind of prioritization of where we're going to focus over the next 5 years. So we do what Mesa's just talked about here and kind of get input from all of the different levels of the organization. And then we prioritize those, and then we look at what those are, what those actually mean, what we would have to do to address those things. So
Sounds like the city general
it's,
plan.
it's a little
Anyway,
bit like
sounds a very good
it's a
idea.
little bit like a work plan, but it's much higher level and longer term.
So when will your plan be available then? I mean, because you still need to talk to staff and the 5 board members, is that?
The managers and the board members at this point. The goal is to have it done in October. That's when for a separate, I'm participating in an American Waterworks Association program this year, and this is part of the requirement for that program. And so as of that program, we're supposed to have everything done in October. So that is the goal for this as well, also to give us a deadline and keep us moving forward. And I think that is realistic, although the prioritization process is obviously probably the most, important part of this. So we will see whether that is sufficient or whether it requires multiple meetings.
Okay, so when will we see a copy of the information you assemble?
The final plan, I would say after October.
Right, but when I was in the conference room, the training, you had it laid out on the table there.
So there's, I think Lisa has it. So I sent you an email with the prioritization exercise I want you to do. So there's a survey in the email which you can fill out, or we have a hard copy of the same thing, which you can fill out the hard copy and return to us.
Okay, so that's basically what was on the table, is what everybody,
Yeah, so essentially the staff already provided their input on what is most important. So now I'm asking you, I'm phrasing it slightly differently. Rather than what's most important, this is what do you think is most urgent to address? So most important, but also considering the timeliness aspect of it more. So within the next 5 years, what do you think is most important to address? So this is how I'm asking for essentially the same feedback from you that I got from the staff, and the same thing that I'm going to go through with the managers
okay,
next
you
week.
sent an email today then? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
you,
right.
you sent it to us today?
I did. I sent it to you just a couple hours ago, and I'm asking for it back in about a week, so you have some time.
But we have paper copies
But
too,
yes,
if you'd
there's
like
paper
to
copies.
just do it that way.
Yeah, okay.
I'll take paper.
Me too.
Yeah, so we have it.
All right, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Then we go on to item number 8C, consider resolution 1159, closing of a checking account for certificates of participation series 2020C for action, Bob.
Yeah, this is the checking account for, so we issued debt in 2020 to refinance, I believe it was 2010 capital appreciation bonds, but part of that issuance, we also refunded, I think, I forget, an SRF loan, I believe, was 2020B, and 2020C was for the liver project. And so I believe we're done expending those funds, and that's why we're closing that account.
Yeah, it's somewhat of a housekeeping item. The account has a zero balance. We've expended the funds, but our process internally is to have the board approve a resolution to authorize us to close the account.
I move we adopt resolution 1159.
Polly seconds.
We had a motion, a second. Any more discussion and roll call,
Yeah,
please? Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead, Shirley.
Just a stupid question. So, yeah, there was different bonds in this account. So,
Different series.
No, this account,
a series of, so in other words, has a zero balance, series 216A and B 220C, I mean.
no,
all-
this account only held the funds for the 2020C. It had nothing to do with A and B.
Oh. Okay, so it was expended, so you're closing it, okay.
Yeah, roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we go to item number 8D, consider engaging Westwater Research to develop water supply opportunities model and study in the amount not to exceed $72,000 for action. Bob?
Yeah, this was presented to the Strategic Water Committee last week, and this is essentially the same presentation that I gave. So the Water District has 3 water supplies, as you know, the Kachuma Project, State Water Project, and local groundwater. All 3 of those water supplies are dependent on rainfall for recharging them. This is a look at the rainfall over, I don't know how many years, let's see, looks like almost 100 years, but you can see here the red line is the average rainfall in inches. You can see here the last 10 years, these brown bars kind of in here, interspersed in here, were the 2013 to, I would say, 2019 drought. But we had a couple of additional years here in 21 and 22. And so this type of dry period happens. You can kind of see it in history here. It happens, but this one was very severe. And we once these types of events happen, we count them as possible. And so when we do analysis on dry year drought planning, we use the worst occurrence, which would be this occurrence. Just kind of giving you a sense of how the rainfall patterns happen in our area. You can see that many average and below average years occur, but then we have a few very wet years, that are spread across the period. Kachuma availability is highly affected by drought, and you can see in that period that I just showed you from 2013 forward that the availability of water dropped significantly as we headed into the drought. And by the time we hit 2017, almost no water was leaving Kachuma, and that was because there was really no water in Kachuma, and it was just being maintained to really be a conveyance structure for state water to try to move state water into the service areas. Other risks with Kachuma include there's a biological opinion that's being worked on by the National Marine Fisheries Service and now the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And it's likely that when that document is completed, that it's going to significantly affect how much water will be required to be released from Kachuma. So currently there are prescribed amounts of water that need to be released at certain times under certain conditions from Bradbury Dam. And what that does is it takes from the water that's impounded behind the dam and releases it downstream, and that has ultimately an effect on the availability of water from Kachuma. A county safe yield study recommended that the current 25,714 acre feet that's annual yield between the 5 Kachuma members be reduced by 20 to 28%. And that's based on a safe yield model that they created and submitted to the Bureau of Reclamation. The member units didn't agree with that, but it's out there. And so as the long-term contract for the Kachuma project is being worked on, it's likely that that will be a negotiating point, reduction of yield. And so we're trying to prepare for a reduction of our principal water supply. Really, Kachuma has been historically Carpinteria's main water supply. Kachuma has also been used in as a storage vehicle. So when wet years occur, the agencies, the member units tend to try to store the water for as long as possible. And so the cycle of Lake Kachuma is that it drains, over maybe 5 years, and then it refills and spills. And so with that in mind, agencies have tried to use Lake Kachuma as a storage location for state water and even allocated Kachuma water in order to hedge against dry periods. And so in other words, they try to stretch out the water that was available during the wet years for as long as possible. And so you try to store it in there. But the Bureau has been signaling that it's not going to allow storage over long periods of time in the lake, with language talking about forfeiture of water that's been left in there for too long, and they've already tried to put in limitations, although they've not been successful because they've been doing temporary short-term contract extensions. But when we do get to the actual 50-year water master contract, it's likely that they'll have something in there limiting the ability to store water. State water project or other surface water supply has been declining in reliability. You can kind of see here that this is sort of the trend line over the history of state water in Santa Barbara County. You can see in the drought, it really performs poorly, and we had 2 5% years here, and in the middle of the earlier portion of the drought, we had a 5% year here, and so those years essentially no water is flowing through the project, and it's really not of assistance in a drought as a drought buffer like we and all the other agencies in Santa Barbara County were counting on it to be. Kind of just looks at a little closer up view, but yeah, you can see that in the drought period here, there were a number of 5% years, some 20% years, and then when it was wet in the northern part of the state, it did jump up in its deliveries, but those were really not significantly helpful. The other thing about state water is we typically don't use a lot of state water. It's the most expensive water, and so what we tend to do, and I think this is true of all South Coast water agencies, is we store water in San Luis Reservoir, and this reservoir has the same problem as Kachuma in that it fills very quickly, and you don't have a lot of notice before it's about to spill, and when that notice is given, immediately a traffic jam occurs because the conveyance can't carry the water out of the reservoir quickly enough for you to avoid loss. And so kind of back here, in 2017 and 2019, 2017 we accumulated a lot of water, and then we held it in San Luis Reservoir, and then 2019 came and we lost it. So it was sort of like, the good deed of trying to plan for the future and potential new dry years is often undone by wet years. And so so that water that could have been utilized out here in 21 and 22 was lost. And then finally, groundwater is a water supply that got us essentially through the drought, because when the surface water supplies were drying up, we were able to turn towards groundwater. But it had an unseen effect, or it wasn't unseen, but it wasn't highly visible, and that was the decline in storage. And so you can kind of see what happened from 2013 to 2020. We saw a pretty rapid decline of groundwater and storage. And these bars on the lower side are pumping, and that's both private and water district pumping combined. So you can see, the historic levels around here, and then as the drought intensified, we really leaned a lot onto the groundwater basin to help us through and meet our demands. What was happening on the other side of the axis here was the rainfall was dipping, and so the actual water going back into the basin was very low. And you can kind of see historically, this happens, but you get these heavy rainfall years that actually help replenish the groundwater basin. But you can see a big blank area right there, which was kind of the driver for why this was happening so rapidly. It was happening rapidly because there was a lot of water being extracted, but it was also happening rapidly because no water was being replenished.
Bob, could I ask you a question about that, this chart? Is this budget or actual measurements of the groundwater level?
Yeah, this is a water budget-based approach.
The figures, okay.
The other thing that we discovered in 2019, well, we didn't discover it in 2019, but we're able to see it begin in 2019, was that seawater had started to move in, and you can kind of see this. These notations are chloride and EC, or electroconductivity, which is a measurement of solids or salinity in water. And so over time, this is 2019 when we first drilled the well, to now you can kind of see, well, you can see a pretty steep rise in chlorides and EC in the deepest well, which is called the C zone. This is the water level across that same period of time. And you can see, the blue line is sea level, and you can see periods of time where the water levels are below sea level. A really long period of time here, starting in 2020, and it just recently came back above sea level. And you can kind of see the, slowing of this chloride concentration rise as a result of this. This alone won't stop the seawater from continuing to move inland. Actually, the work that we've done is showing that we'll need, more head in that zone to actually to push this back. And so in the GSP, that was one of the discussions that we had was, do we need some sort of injection project here to bring these water levels even further above the sea level? The bottom bar is showing district well pumping. So the black is, I believe the black is headquarters and the blue is El Caro. Headquarters is not perforated in the C zone, so you wouldn't expect it to have that much of an effect, and it's hard to tell if it's driving. But the El Caro well is perforated in the C zone, so you can kind of see these declines are related to intense pumping in this period. So some of the things that we've discussed in developing the GSP and developing kind of an outlook of how do we solve some of these water supply reliability issues. We've looked at groundwater banking and banking water in the Carpinteria Basin. That was identified in the GSP as one of the actions or potential management actions or projects that would help and support sustainability. If we had a spot, meaning the water district, if we had a spot to store wet weather water that spills over Lake Kachuma or spills over San Luis, or not spills over, but spills out of San Luis, we may be able to lessen the shortages that would occur during a future drought. Additionally, other agencies may be interested in banking water in the Carpinteria Groundwater Basin. Montecito has expressed interest. Casitas has expressed interest. And that could be developed in a way to benefit both the groundwater basin and potentially the water district. So as far as demand. So one thing that we have determined, and it's proven itself out, is that we have enough water during normal years. Our demand, although low currently, is expected to be, somewhere between 4,000 and 4,500 in a normal condition. We know that we have 5,000. If you add up all the allocations of Kachuma and state water and groundwater, we have somewhere over 5,000 acre feet of water available. But as those supplies get stressed, the availability supply goes down, and what we find is that we start to run out of water in extended droughts. And as I said, it's proven true because we had to purchase supplemental water a couple of times over the last 10 years to make sure that we had sufficient water. And we pumped probably more than was good for the groundwater basin. So all this kind of goes towards what we're trying to have West Water do for us, and that would be build a water supply model and look at opportunities like banking, both in Carpinteria, but also out in the Central Valley, doing transfers. So, for example, let's say we have state water and we do the CAP project. We may not need that state water as often, so we could market that state water and offset some of the costs for CAP. We also could do similar to Montecito, get into long-term deals where we arrange for exchanges in both directions, meaning we can sell water in certain percentage years for the state water project at a certain price, and buy water in certain percentage years at a fixed price from various agencies that might be interested in something like that. And so what we wanted to have Westwater do is really put together a comprehensive look at all of our options, kind of what the costs are of those options, and then evaluate whether or not it makes sense to do some of these things. I've been asked many times, why aren't we doing injection in Carpinteria Basin? Well, we could, but I think it would behoove us to do some analysis before we just jump into a program where we're just putting water in the basin and hoping that it's going to benefit us in the time we need it. So with that, on the agenda, I'm requesting that we engage Westwater Research to do a water supply opportunities model and study in the amount of $72,000.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I think to your last point with like ASR, I guess I'm a little lost on how we know CAP is beneficial to put in to pull out, but we don't think ASR is, or we don't know ASR would be?
So one of the questions that has come up is, could we solve our water supply reliability problems with just ASR without CAP? So that's one of the things that they would look at to make an analysis to see, okay, what would it take operationally? Could we actually do it by storing water either in our basin or elsewhere? Would we have enough water to bridge those water supply gaps? I don't think they're not going to do anything in terms of the hydrogeology of the basin or anything like that, if that's what you're asking.
No, I mean, I guess that kind of covers the question. And then I'm not quite sure, this sounds super similar to the update we're receiving from
The econ study? It
Sure.
actually dovetails into the econ study because the econ study has to look at alternatives. And so previously, we used the desal project as the alternative to CAP. So this is just creating a management alternative. In other words, can we solve this problem just by water supply management?
And then something like this was not similarly done as like a precursor to CAP, or was just a
It
single
was in
point?
pieces, so the water district did it in-house with a number of water supply models that are not connected really. And so what we're trying to do is kind of do a comprehensive model that that'll be able to look at all of the options and then compare the costs. Those models will be provided to Westwater for them to use.
Right.
to
And
build
who's
that.
doing the other one?
M cubed.
M-Cube, that's right. I guess it's just a lot of money, and it feels like I feel like it's approaching kind of some answers we already know, and I can't quite pick out the big differences. You know, we have the expected results, and it's kind of stuff we already have studied or are studying, it feels like, and I guess I can't piece out
Yeah,
what
we,
this is going to give us that we don't have.
well, we have the results of, do we have enough water? So let's just talk in terms of questions. Do we have enough water supply? The answer is yes in normal conditions, no in drought. So then the question becomes, the water, when the wet periods occur and the water's available, can we change operationally how we manage that water to get us, in a better position, in fact, maybe even to the point where we don't need to purchase water? And we don't have that answer. We do the best we can when we're managing our water supply, but again, we don't have all the tools. We don't have ASR wells. We haven't purchased any storage in a groundwater basin up in the north. We haven't made any arrangements with any of the other agencies in the Central Valley to see if something would work. So we don't have a complete understanding of, if we could. I mean, given the tools that we have, we've tried and we haven't been able to avoid purchasing supplemental water and risking running out of water. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if we can't, then is there sort of a combined project list of CAP plus this that will help offset some of the costs of CAP by selling off state water or transferring state water in times when we don't need it because we have now a supplemental water supply that's more reliable. So that will look at that as well.
Will this look specifically at ASR?
Yes, that will be one of the options.
Decel as well, or no?
No, not decel, because decel's already defined. M cubed has already looked at it and as an alternative.
And M-Cube didn't look at ASR or
No.
water banking of other
No,
types?
because it wasn't defined. There was no program or anything like that defined.
So with this and the M-Cubed results, we should have a comprehensive understanding of most available banking, supply side opportunities available to CARP.
Yes, that's the goal.
Thanks.
Remind me again, where do we stand with the Kern County and Irvine? Are we still in touch with those guys? And
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one of the,
I know we don't have
but-
any water there right now, but I also know that was a pretty, at least way back when, it was a pretty productive and positive exercise and partnership.
Yeah, that's one of the potentials. I mean, you lose, half of your water when you deposit it in that bank. Is that the best option? I don't know.
At the time it was. It might not be now. I get that.
Yeah,
But
at the time,
at least we learned a lot, and it was good for us. It helped us out, and we're still in touch with them.
Yeah, at the time it was the only option. When
Well,
we
others were telling us we made the right move because they did other things that ended up not working out for them. So,
Right.
okay. So, thank you. That's what I wanted to know on that.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Shirley.
The $72,000, where's this money coming from? Is it budgeted?
Yes, it would be under professional services, or professional engineering services budget.
And that's just a main budget. Well, I do have to say, you did run the gamut of our main water concerns right now, and you went through everything. And I'd like to bring, number one, Central Coast Water Authority as a group is doing the studies, and we allocated money to do the studies in water banking and, and general water management. So, and I have to say, I don't really can get it would be lovely to have someone tie all this in and give us the answers. But I don't think that's how it's working. I think that maybe the proper role of West Water Research is for us to make some goals, to decide our own goals. And, maybe it'd be a goal that we want to have a local supply of water to rely on. Because almost anything you mentioned, state water, even Kachuma, even, you went through it, San Luis, anything that's on the other side of Tecolote Tunnel that's why the cap is unique in that, but it is also drought dependent because we get the money from the wastewater system, and people cut back during a drought, but still not as much as variable as the others is. And then it's a problem because we've already spent that money. It's a lot of money. It limits what you can do otherwise, and we've already done groundwater banking. So I would see Westwater's role is when we find our direction that even with the expense of the recycle project that we want to start injecting water or having an allocation locally on this side of the Tecolote Tunnel, which is kind of what LA Metro did, because they realized they were on the other side of an earthquake fault. And as much as they were pushing for state water, lately, in the last few years, they built billion-dollar reservoir projects and stuff on their side of the earthquake fault. So, my general feeling is that Central Coast Water Agency is doing research in this area, and I think Westwater Research is going to they have knowledge, but it changes day to day. But that's why they're valuable, because they know day to day, what the price of water is what this water bank's doing, or that, or the general terms, but not for to try to tie everything together in a study. We kind of did that in one case before, and what ended up happening is we paid for a study, not 72,000, but maybe 50, and we were brought into a project that research company happened to be involved in, and it was a good project because of the location and stuff. It had a lot to speak for it, but again, I just don't see them consulting. And I think during the committee, we were asking, well, can we see a sample of, because we can't picture what are we going to get for this? Because you've already gone through the whole our challenges that we're facing, which are hard. Almost anything. Any water supply has to come through Kachuma, and if it gets dire, then we can't even, unless we build a whole new piping system, we can't even, Polly's been intimately involved with the barge, which, moves the pipe to a deeper part of the lake, because if it gets, too low, then we can't even get our state water through that avenue. So a lot of moving pieces. But, that's kind of what I feel, is that we would call on them a call to action. This is what we need to do, make it happen, or what can you do, But that's my input.
Actually, so Shirley, you were in the committee? You were in the committee?
Oh, yeah, on the strategic water management.
Okay, who else was? You were too?
Yeah.
What did you think?
Well,
I always ask, we haven't had a committee meeting in so long, I always ask, what did you guys?
at risk of going to item later on the agenda.
But no, I know, but
No, well, I think that, we wanted to see suggested, could we see a sample of a report that's similar, just to see how it's structured and, the architecture of the report. But I would say, I think I support this. I think, as we get closer and closer to the point of no return on CAP, what the studies say is going to be very, very important to us to have.
Okay.
Are there alternatives? You talk about a water injection program that's, maybe we buy supplemental water every year. And if you take 80 or 70 million dollars of the CAP project and you were to say, just for the sake of illustration, put that in the bank and draw interest only on it, you probably could have 1,000 acre feet of supplemental water that you inject, whether you need it or not, just like CAP would do. And of course, you draw on it when there's no supplemental water to be had. So, it's just be interesting to see when they really put their mind to it, is CAP really strategically advantageous over supplemental water
Exactly.
purchases.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Bob, I got a question. Will building recharge basins in the Carpinteria Valley be part of this study or not?
No, that was not considered as part of, as an alternative, largely because it's very difficult for us to manage private property that is going to be, if that's what you mean. I mean, we could do a purchase land and build those, but I don't think that's what you mean.
No, and the reason I'm asking is, I've been on the board for 6 years now, and once you go to one drought, you kind of expect there's going to be another one in the next 7 to 14 years. And it seems to me that, between CAP, ASR, and recharge, I think those are probably the three most real solutions for us. And if we got to write off Kachuma and state water, that's how I feel. Like I say, I have a recharge basin myself, and they work beautiful when it rains. But then when there's no rain, they don't work because there's no
Right.
water. So, but anyhow, I
And,
still.
one of the things that we, when we did the initial work, feasibility work for CAP, we looked at the option of doing spreading basins rather than direct injection. And the quality of water can be lesser if you're going to spread it and let it percolate in. But the hydrogeologists were telling us that there's no good basis for describing how that water will get into the aquifers that CVWD use, which are the confined zones. And so the problem was you could put it in, but it's likely it would stay in the area that you're putting it in for long enough for people in that area just to pull it back out. And so that's why we ended up going with a direct injection approach for CAP water.
True, and that's probably cheaper than buying a recharge basin. Okay, I just want to get an idea on, and just curious, what is the capacity that we have available to the district from state water? How many acre feet a year do we have in the conduit?
We have 2,200 acre feet in a full 100% allocation year.
Right, but at least we have the capacity. If there's no state water, we can still use the 2,200
Yes.
acre feet conduit. And how about from Kachuma to Carpinteria? Is same thing, 2,200 or more?
There's more, yeah. So the capacity of the Kachima project is, I think it's very underutilized. It's, I want to say it's about 70% utilized or something like that.
So we might have up to 3,000 acre feet available to.
Of conveyance capacity?
Yeah, conveyance, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, yeah, one of the things, we might have even more than that, but one of the constraints is getting state water into Lake Kachuma, which is, it has to be pumped in. And so there's a little bit of a bottleneck there. And I think I want to say it's 20 CFS So I don't know what that converts to in acre feet per day, but
Right, but still, when there is spill water available, we have the capacity to get it down to Carpinteria now, so.
spill water in the State Water Project?
No, the Kachuma.
Kachuma.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
it's not like, we got at least 3,000 acre feet transmission
Yeah,
capacity.
yeah, just to give you a perspective though on how often that happens, it happens on average every 3 to 4 years and lasts for 3 to 4 months, so. So those type, relying on just that available time period is probably not gonna significantly affect how much water we can get stored in the groundwater basin. There's also a constraint on the injection wells, so we only have two currently, two ASR capable wells, with a combined injection rate of about 6 or 700 acre feet. I'm sorry, 600 or 700 gallons per minute. And so, you can see there's lots of little constraints that you have to deal with.
Yeah, I'd also like to add that I agree with Matt, although I didn't think it was a possibility to back out of the CAP project at this point, especially with the grants and stuff, but, all that is just, figuring and really going, especially the ASR well rates, and putting everything together in a big jigsaw puzzle, it sounds like. And so, again, I'm just not confident that Westwater Research they would really provide this information for us. I think they can provide market information very well, but real time, which is they don't have a crystal ball. They're not going to maybe be able to predict that long term. And a lot of that is just more technical data in the weeds. So again, I'd like to see before I would, allocate the studies to see at least some sort of an example or template because I really have no idea other than market information. I know, but I think it's a good thing we could look at, and maybe we can even, have money for because CAP is their ace in the hole is it's this side of Tecolote, and pumping water into the groundwater, our own groundwater basin is again, they're the only two options for this side of the Tecolote, and everything else you're dealing with many variables, and Bob didn't even mention if you're bringing the water up from the state water project and nobody else of the Kachuma members wants water, then the electric rates for that pump are insane. It could cost maybe $100 an acre foot at some point, and then it could cost you $2,000 an acre foot, depending on what the power company decides to charge and who else is using water. And I don't know how they have like over. What was John Brady saying? And he studied it. He really tried to study it. They have like over 5,000 water rates, depending, and they get it all through legislation. It's all approved, but depending on hours or sunlight or who knows what. But that's another thing, that all has to be figured in and strategized, and they were already strategizing for the Lake Kachuma, and that the Lake Kachuma users were banding together and trying to pump at the same time, because that lowers the cost per acre foot. As you know very well, if you go a few acre foot, they charge you as if you used, that much for the whole month. That's why it goes up exponentially, like 10 times, or maybe even more than that. So I think there's amazing options out there, but that's kind of my view. Is I'd really like to maybe see a sample or a template of what kind of information we would be getting.
How did they respond to that? Asking for a template?
They said that they would contact their clients to to find out, and so I haven't checked back to see if they've,
Okay. So we've asked them.
we have asked
Haven't
them,
said
yes.
no or anything like that. Okay. And one of the committee members supports it, so I'm just going to try a motion. I'll make a motion to support the Westwater Research study in an amount not to exceed $72,000.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Nay.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
We go on to item number 8E, consider quote from Kara Contractors to complete additional work on Santa Claus Lane project in an amount not to exceed $132,990 for action. Bob?
Yeah, this is back, you may recall, you approved a $166,000 quote for Tierra to lay pipeline, and we had a placeholder of $130,000 for what we're terming conductor casings along a section of Santa Claus Lane where the county is putting in bioswales, and so what will happen is our pipeline crosses the location where these bioswales are going, and they'll excavate out, that area, and then our pipe will just be hanging there. And so what we need to do is put in 2 half steel pipe conductors and basically weld them around our pipes so that when they do dig out for the bioswale construction, that our pipes don't just fall in. And we estimated in our overall estimate that it would cost about $130,000 we thought, for Tierra to do it, and they came back with a quote of $132,990. There were some other in-house estimates of work that we put together, and we think there's enough to cover the $2,900 extra dollars that the quote is including.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Actually, I have a question. So the county's not going to pay for this? No, I'm just, if you don't ask, then you'll never get.
No, it's been a long battle with the county on this project, and if you recall, we got a single bid from Toro, which was $2 million, and so we're trying to patch it together so we can get it done, get the minimal amount of work done needed for the project.
Okay.
It's interesting about the bioswales. Maybe it'll help fend off seawater intrusion. Or is that for seabirds?
Yeah, I think it's a low impact development standard where you're trying to capture stormwater and let it kind of soak into the ground.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, and no more discussion, and roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
And Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we got item number 8F, consider district election schedule for 2024 for action. Bob?
Yeah, this is in your packet. This is just an informational item to remind you that the period opened for the 2 seats that we have up for election on July 15th. It will close August 9th, I believe. If the incumbents don't file papers by that deadline, they will extend it a few days beyond that, but
What districts?
just notice, at least 2 and 4, yeah. If you know which ones those are,
That's not mine.
yes.
I'm 4 and Polly is 2. So, well, they're 2 and 4, right?
Yes. All right.
So do we need to adopt that schedule, or is it?
Oh, no, it's just for information. sorry.
Okay, then we go on to director reports, item number 9, 9A, Strategic Water Management Committee meeting, July 1st, 2024. That was Matt and Casey. Did we already cover that?
Yeah, we reviewed the calculated demand credits and levying of intensification fees, and I think there's a lot more to go, but we had some good discussion.
Okay. Then we have item number 9B, Rated Budget Committee meeting, July 9, 2024. That was Shirley and myself.
Yep, and that was pretty much the rate and credit methods, and we looked at different property, property examples, and there's different ways you could, calculate the intensification, and at what point do you look at charging intensification fees for new projects? So there's tough questions. We discussed a lot of that, and if and or what. I guess the bottom line is that intensification fees are pretty much a no-brainer in the future for big new projects, but what about all the shades in between, and what about major agriculture property expansion? So that's what we discussed too.
Yeah, actually, go ahead, Bob.
Oh, I was just going to say, we are working now, after you've given us some input, to sort of clean that up a little bit, and we'll probably go back with one more committee meeting before we come to the board, so.
Right, I had a question that, and I don't think Carpinteria really has to worry about it, because everything in the valley is either, they got meters, they got wells. Most of the property in the valley is already being farmed. It is just some of my friends own ground in the Los Alamos area, and bottom line is, with their GSA being, it's approved that the property owners that had grazing ground, basically, well, right now, it'll probably go to court, but they didn't get a lot of water, and the guys that have been hogging it for the last 20, 30 years, like the vineyards and the produce people, they got more there than fair share. I just want to make sure that doesn't happen in Carpinteria, and it sounds like that's not going to happen here, so, okay, I'm just making sure we stay ahead of that one, because.
Yeah, I think you're talking about San Antonio Basin.
Sorry, San
yeah.
Antonio, yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah, they're in a little bit worse situation than we are here in Carpinteria,
Right,
groundwater-wise.
but it's my understanding from some of the property owners that it got shortchanged, that they're not gonna accept that. So it is, so once they get together, we'll see what happens, so it is. Okay, thank you. Then we got 9C, Strategic Water Management Committee meeting, July 17th, 24. That is Robertson Johnson.
Yeah, and that's basically, we talked about it tonight
Got it.
with the planning with Westwater.
Right, okay.
Yep, he's in favor and I'm not.
Well, let's be
But
open-minded, Shirley.
we're all looking for the same solution.
Hey, we're
so-
all looking for the cheapest source of water, yeah, so. Okay, 9D, that's COMB regular meeting, June 24, Polly?
Thank you. So the first thing we did was have elections of the officers, and I got reelected as chair. Kristen got reelected as vice chair. We passed the fish-related articles that I talked to you about at the last meeting that were in the Fish Committee meeting. So the sole source for the fish passage and habitat enhancements was approved, as well as the Resolution 799, the agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation on the fish actions, as well as the whole fish outline in our relationship with the Bureau of Reclamation. Let's see. There was a Southern California Edison workshop on power shutoffs. It was called PSPS, which stands for the Public Safety Power Shut Off, that our general manager attended. We also did an analysis on electric vehicles versus gas, and found that over a 10-year period, we would save about $21,000 right now with the e-truck, and which would also include less maintenance, and we would get a $7,500 rebate. And they still discussed, even though I think that this could be in litigation, but 2027 still is the deadline for public agencies to move into vehicles. In terms of OPEB, we were told that this year is our full evaluation study. The cost will be $32,000, and we'll be doing it with total compensation systems. Our surplus with the Bureau ended June 21st, as opposed to June 30th last year. We took a total of 5,000 to 6,000 acre feet of surplus water. At least at the time, Case will be updating us on the recent board meeting, but the Bureau is trying to keep the lake as full as possible for as long as possible. And at that time last month, there was still a slight spill going over the dam, but not a safety issue. The lower reach repairs, Bob might have an update on this, are taking place in July. And there were some material delays in Caltrans and Bureau issues, but those appear to be resolved, or we're going
Yeah,
forward?
we're moving forward.
Great. The elevator still is an issue, at least it was at this particular meeting. The shaft continues to get damp now that the lake is full. It leads to electrical outages, and the elevator stalls. And we all agreed that we cannot have that, even though the elevator has been prioritized for the list of projects this year, which is true. We have asked for an update on a monthly basis if possible, so we know that this is being taken care of. With respect to fish, it was 100 days of working 2 traps at 2 different sites. Basically, fish are everywhere, Salsa Puertas, including some fish that have come up from the ocean, so all that is very good news. They did have to take the traps out several times when the Bureau started to pull back its releases, and they worked with CDFW and NIMS to make sure that this was all done safely. And with respect to oak trees, at least at this time, the heat was sitting in, therefore watering was being done on years 12 and 13. They're still assessing some of the trees that were got flooded during the rainy season at the beginning of the year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Polly. Then I'll take number, 9E, the regular meeting on July 22nd, 2024. We spent a lot of time on the fisheries report. I mean, it was 300 some pages or whatever. That's a lot of work. But actually, I thought it was very interesting, and it's available online. If anybody needs some nighttime reading, I think I highly recommend it. So it is,
Well, the important stuff is 73 pages, so it's not that
oh,
bad.
I know that, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. So that the one thing that became clear was, even though because of the heavy rains, there was a lot of turbulence in the lake, but despite the heavy turbulence, the fish population did not go down, which I thought was interesting. So, but what was more interesting was that the fish that spawn naturally was surviving a lot better than the fish that are brought in, which I think is, that's kind of interesting. I mean, maybe there's a message here. They got to figure out how to multiply the natural spawning fish. But anyhow, so that was that. Then COMB received 2 awards from a government finance officers association, which is a peer review. And they got 1 certificate for achievement for excellence in financial reporting. And then they got the highest principles of government budgeting. So it does compare you with your peers, but it does keep everybody, in line. Then also, COMB did purchase a brush mulcher attachment for $20,888, and also a brush mower attachment for $10,666. And the reason is they're phasing out the use of herbicide, I think Roundup particularly, and I thought it was very interesting. Just curious, are we using any Roundup in our system, or is it this?
No, we don't use Roundup. In the locations around our reservoirs, we don't use it.
Right, and I'm sure that's the reason why they're getting away from the using a Roundup around the reservoir. So I thought that was interesting. It'll be a little more work, but hey, at least the roots stay in the ground, so it is. Then the prediction is there will be an El Niño, but so there'll be possibly less water available this next rainy season, but we'll know it when the season is over, I'm assuming. And then also the comb contractor is in the process of finishing off the valves on our part of the on the conduit. So that's all I got. So
I forgot to mention something important. I'm sorry, Case.
go for it.
I don't think I mentioned we were waiting on that check, Norma, it's been so long since we met. I think we were waiting on that check. So we got the refund that I was telling you guys about, the $1 million back, and our portion of that was 12%. So what was it, like 100 and something thousand? Okay.
Yeah, I think we got it, because I remember
We
saying.
did
yeah,
get it, but
we
I
did.
didn't mention it. We were waiting on, it was pending
Yeah.
at the last meeting, and so Janet just confirmed that all that money had been sent back.
Yes, we
Thank you.
received it.
Thank you. And then we go on to item number 9F, CCWA regular meeting, June 27, 2024. That's Shirley, sorry.
Yeah, okay, so we returned to open session and no reportable action. We had an election of officers, same as last year, no controversy there. And they introduced David Beard, who is the new Deputy Director of Operations, who's replacing John Brady, who is retiring. We had a cake and, a send-off for him after the meeting. And water station report, I think it'll be the last one we have until the next rainy season, and it's kind of nothing to report there. Oh, yes, and then we dealt with the assistant agreement with Montecito Water District, who transfer exchanges, and also La Cumbra. And these agreements, I actually rather looked at them in rather closely, because it's the first time we're doing these kind of exchanges, and I'm we're very curious to see how it's going to go. So, and it's interesting in this case that one, Montecito is looking to sell water, and La Cumbra is looking to buy water from the same entity, Homer LLC, which is a subsidiary of I forget their whole name. I have it written down, but Resources. Anyway, they're a big water concern. So that was very interested, and I think they have it structured very well. That Central Coast Water Authority is they don't make decisions regarding this, but they do assistance agreements. So that was interesting, and some of them are set up long-term, but options. In other words, Montecito has, and it's none of our, we don't tell each other what to do. We have no liability in the agreements, but it really is all transparent, and everyone, involved, but it's totally up to what their water situation looks like, whether they sell any water or not. So that's interesting. And then the next thing, Bob already touched on this with the Bureau and the contract for Kachuma, the Warren Act contract, and so that just keeps going on with temporary new.
Good. Welcome and good evening. Welcome to the City of Carpinteria City Council regular meeting for July 22nd, 2024. And may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Nomura,
Here.
Councilmember Solorzano,
Here.
Vice Mayor Alarcon,
Here.
Councilmember Lee,
Here.
and Mayor Clark.
Here. And the council is reconvening from a closed session held before. Is there a report out from the closed session?
Thank you, Mayor Clark, council members. You're correct, the council was in closed session for a conference with real party negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 in regards to one piece of property, 801 Linden Avenue, Carpinteria, California, and there's no reportable action tonight.
All right, thank you so much. Will you now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First thing we have are introductions, proclamations, and presentations, with the first one being a proclamation proclaiming Tuesday, August 6, 2024 as National Night Out in the City of Carpinteria. And we'll read that out, that proclamation. We'll start with Council Member Supervisor-elect Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the National Association of Town Watch, NATW, sponsors a national community building campaign on Tuesday, August 6, 2024, entitled National Night Out. And
whereas the National Night Out campaign provides an opportunity for neighbors in Carpinteria to join over 38 million neighbors across 17,000 communities from all 50 states, U.S. territories, and military bases worldwide. And
whereas National Night Out is an annual community building campaign that promotes strong law enforcement, community partnerships, and neighborhood camaraderie to make our neighborhoods safer, more caring places to live and work, and
Whereas it is essential that all neighbors of Carpinteria come together with the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office and work together to build a safer, more caring community.
Now therefore, the Council of the City of Carpinteria hereby proclaims Tuesday, August 6, 2024 as National Night Out in the City of Carpinteria, invites all neighbors in Carpinteria to join the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office Girls, Inc. of Carpinteria and the National Association of Town Watch in support of the National Night Out event on August 6, 2024 from 5 to 7 p.m. on the 800 block of Linden. And,
I move for approval.
all right,
Second.
we'll first take public comment. Would anybody like to comment on this agenda item? And seeing none, anybody on Zoom, Brian?
Mayor, we have no raised hands.
All right, thanks so much. Okay, we'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the council, and we'll ask everybody if they approve, vote yes, or no if you don't approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0, Brian. Thank you very much. Do we have somebody from the audience here to receive this? Oh, there's somebody.
I gotta push the button.
We'll give it to you.
Great job. Well, just come out. Everybody come out and have a good time with us. Hang out. There's gonna be lots of our department out there. We're gonna bring in some maybe big jail van this year again, and some other organizations are joining us. There'll be the tractor out there with Public Works. So hang out with the kids and have some fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next one is a mayoral recognition awarded to the Coastal View News for receiving 2024 awards from the Association of Community Publishers Awards.